Good morning, everyone. It is now time for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Chapter 15, The Chocolate Room. If you remember, in the last chapter, we were just entering the factory and we were going through a lot of twisty, turny passages leading into some exciting new rooms, some exciting new worlds. We're not really sure what they're going to be yet. So here we go. Let's get into it. An important room, this, cried Mr. Wonka, taking a bunch of keys from his pocket and slipping one into the keyhole of the door. This is the nerve center of the whole factory, the heart of the whole business. And so beautiful. I insist upon my rooms being beautiful. I can't abide ugliness in factories. In we go, then. But do be careful, my dear children. Don't lose your heads. Don't get overexcited. Keep very calm. Mr. Wonka opened the door. 5 children and 9 grown-ups pushed their way in. And oh, what an amazing sight it was that was now meeting their eyes. They were looking down a lovely valley. There were green meadows on either side of the valley. And along the bottom of it, there flowered a great brown river. A brown river? I'm a little confused about that, are you? Say. What is more, there was a tremendous waterfall halfway along the river, a steep cliff over which the water curled and rolled into a solid sheet, and then went crashing down into a boiling, churning whirlpool of froth and spray. Now, the author, Roald Dahl, is putting a lot of focus on this water. I'm wondering if it is important in some way. Let's find out. Oops. Oh, hold on. There we go. Ha. Below the waterfall, and this was the most astonishing sight of all, a whole mass of enormous glass pipes were dangling down into the river from somewhere high up in the ceiling. They really were enormous. Those pipes. Wow, there must have been a dozen of them at least, and they were sucking up a brownish, muddy water from the river and carrying it all the way to goodness knows where. And because they were made of glass, you could see the liquid flowing and bubbling along inside them. And above the noise of the waterfall, you could hear the never-ending sucking sound of the pipes as they did their work. Graceful trees and bushes were growing along the riverbanks, weeping willows and alders and tall clumps of rhododendrons with their pink and red mauve blossoms. In the meadows, there were thousands of buttercups. This would be a good time, boys and girls, for you to stop and maybe draw a picture. I think we're going to focus a bit on visualizing for this part here. What are you picturing in your head? There's a lot of description here. You can go back and replay this if you need to. What are you picturing? There, cried Mr. Wonka, dancing up and down, pointing his gold-topped cane at the great brown river. It's all chocolate. Every drop of that river is hot melted chocolate of the finest quality, the very finest quality. That's enough chocolate in there to fill every bathtub in the entire country, and all the swimming pools as well. Isn't it terrific? And just look at my pipes. They take up the chocolate and carry it away to all the other rooms in the factory where it is needed. Thousands of gallons an hour, my dear children. Thousands and thousands of gallons. Now, someone seems really proud of his work. Well, then take a look here. The children and their parents were too flabbergasted to speak. Flabbergasted, what an interesting word. So I'm thinking, the children and their parents were feeling a certain way and they were unable to speak. So I have to think about, if I'm unable to speak, I could be frightened. So maybe flabbergasted means frightened. But I don't know. This seems like something kind of beautiful and amazing. I don't know if they'd be frightened. To me, maybe they're more shocked or amazed. What do you think? Well, I'm going to go ahead and plug amazed in for the word flabbergasted and see if it makes sense. The children and their parents were too amazed to speak. They were staggered. They were dumbfounded. Oh, all these words have similar meaning. They're different ways of saying the word amazed, basically. They were bewildered and dazzled. They were completely bowled over by the hugeness of the whole thing. They simply stood and stared. The waterfall is most important, Mr. Wonka went on. It mixes the chocolate, it churns it up, it pounds it and it beats it, and makes it light and frothy. No other factory in the world mixes its chocolate by waterfall, but it's the only way to do so properly. The only way. And do you like my trees? He cried, pointing with his stick. And my lovely bushes? Don't you think they look pretty? I told you I didn't like it when things weren't pretty. And of course, they're all edible. All made of something different and delicious. And do you like my meadows? Do you like my green grass and my buttercups? The grass you are standing on, my dear little ones, is made of a new kind of soft, minty sugar that I've just invented. I call it swudge. Try a blade, please do. It's delectable. Can you imagine that, being in a place that's made completely of candy? Whoa. Automatically, everybody bent down and picked up a blade of grass. Everybody, that is, except Augustus Gloop, who took a big handful. And Violet Beauregard, before tasting her blade of grass, took the piece of world record-breaking chewing gum out of her mouth and stuck it carefully behind her ear. Isn't it wonderful? Whispered Charlie. Hasn't it got a wonderful taste, Grandpa? I could eat the whole field, said Grandpa Joe, grinning with delight. I could go around on all fours like a cow and eat every blade of grass in the field. Try a buttercup, cried Mr. Wonka. They're even nicer. Suddenly, the air was filled with screams of excitement. The screams came from Veruca Salt. She was pointing frantically to the other side of the river. Look over there, she screamed. What is it? He's moving, he's walking. It's a little person. It's a little man down there below the waterfall. Everybody stopped picking buttercups up and stared across the river. She's right, Grandpa, cried Charlie. It is a little man. Can you see him? I see him, Charlie, said Grandpa Joe excitedly. And here they are. And now everybody started shouting at once. There's two of them! My gosh, so there is! There's more than two! There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5! What are they doing? Where do they come from? So I think that the people are feeling a certain way right now. How do you think they're feeling? And what from the story is making you believe that they feel that way? You can take a moment to think about that. I think all of the people visiting the factory feel because. What do you think? Who are they? Children and parents alike rushed down to the edge of the river to get a closer look. Aren't they fantastic? No higher than my knee. Look at their funny long hair. The tiny men were no larger than a medium-sized doll, had stopped what they were doing, and now they were staring back across the river at the visitors. One of them pointed towards the children, and then he whispered something to the other four, and all 5 of them burst into peals of laughter. But they can't be real people, Charlie said. Of course they're real people, Mr. Wonka answered. They're Oompa Loompas. So, that concludes chapter 15. Now, there was a lot to visualize there, as I mentioned before. Your assignment today, if you choose to do it, would be to draw. You can even draw and color what you visualize. You can go back and listen to this part. It's a great thing for you to work on. Feelings would also be another task that you could work on if you weren't in the mood for drawing today. But remember, these little write-ups are always optional. Thank you for reading with me today. Can't wait to see you next time.